What are your ideas on how we can make political reform and democratic reforms the center of current presidential campaigns?
I think it's just by insisting when you speak to them. That's why I love New Hampshire, because you have such enormous power and it's kind of retail politics. Like people, you're going to speak to them one-on-one for the next, it'll feel like 17 years, but it's only just about a year now, right? And when you speak to them and they start talking about all these beautiful things, you need to bring them back and you say, how are you going to get that if you don't fix the system first? Right? So you talk about single-payer health care, that's just not serious in a world where pharmaceutical companies and doctors and insurance companies fund campaigns. So you're just not serious unless you're talking about how you're going to fix the corruption first. You want to deal with climate change? We will never pass climate change legislation in the United States to address climate change comprehensively until we change the way campaigns are funded and carbon companies don't fund congressional campaigns. None of the issues you care about, whether on the right or the left, like if you're on the right and you care about ending crony capitalism, or you care about a fair tax rate or a productive tax rate, those things are not possible when the crony capitalists are funding campaigns, or when the people who are trying to get their taxes cut are the ones funding campaigns. So I think the trick is just to be a little bit impatient and insistent. And as they go on and talk about the beautiful, happy fantasy politics, that is their way of speaking, you got to bring them down to ground, back down to earth and say, what the hell? What are you talking about? Why do you think that's possible if you don't fix this first? And it takes a little bit of uppiness, especially from people like you. Because the great, I used to be in the business, as you might know, I used to be in the business of working on internet policy and copyright policy. And in one of my TED Talks, I told this story, but it was somebody who was not much older than you, who completely changed my life, because he came to me December of 2006, and he was a really good friend. He had been the chief technical officer of Creative Commons at the age of 14. He was one of the inventors of RSS. He became one of the founders of Reddit. But he came to me in 2006 and he said to me, so why do you think you're ever going to solve any of the problems you're talking about, so long as we have this corrupted government? And I was a little impatient, and I said to him, Aaron, it's just not my field. And he said, you mean as an academic? I said, it's not my field as an academic. And he said, okay, but what about as a citizen? Is it your field as a citizen? And I realized he had cornered me because he had this idealism. And I could either choose to live up to that ideal, or I could just show him that I was a cynical old guy who liked, the really comfortable life I had, giving very high-priced talks about copyright legislation. And that night, that guilt led me to say I was going to give up all of my work about copyright and the internet, and I was going to take up this fight, which has been this fight for the last decade to get America to do something about this corrupted system. And I tell that story because you need to recognize how much power your idealism has. Because when people see you, they see who they used to be. They see the dreams they used to have. They see they remember the days they thought everything was possible. And more than anything, they don't want to let you down. But the reality is my generation has let you down. We are the first generation who will hand to our children a world that is worse than the world we inherited. The problems we face are nothing compared to the problems you're going to face. And it's all on us. And you need to use that against us to get what you need, which is a democracy. Let's start with that.